My dad kicked me out of the house over a $20 grocery mistake. He slammed a coffee can on the counter, pointed at the street, and said, "You're a liability, Eric." Quick thing before we go on. I made a free money starter kit. No cost, no catch. The playbook I wish I had when I was broke. The link's in the description. Grab it. And liabilities get cut. I was 17 years old. 2 years later I found out what all that rage was really hiding. $40,000 in gambling debt. This is the story of how 20 bucks got me thrown out, and how the quiet old man my father hated handed me a whole new life. Back then we were 3 people pretending to be a family. My dad, my little sister Emily, and me, in a small brick house that always smelled like burnt coffee. My mom passed when I was 12. After that, Dad got loud and the house got quiet. Emily kept her college savings in an account Mom opened the week she was born, and she taped the bank statements to her mirror like posters. I stocked shelves at the grocery store on weekends for $9 an hour. And then there was Grandpa Samuel, my mom's father. He ran a little appliance repair shop across town, a place that smelled like machine oil and peppermint candy. Calmest man I've ever known. Dad wouldn't even say his name. All I knew was they'd fought about money years ago, and Dad had declared him dead to us. I still snuck over there some Sundays. Remember all of this. The savings account. The repair shop. The feud. Every piece of it comes back. So here's the night it happened. Dad handed me a 20 and a grocery list. Milk, eggs, bread, and his exact brand of coffee. The store was out of his brand, so I grabbed a different can and spent the change on bananas for Emily. When Dad saw that coffee can, he went off like I'd wrecked his car. That's when he slammed it down, leaned in, and gave me the line you already heard. "You're a liability, Eric. And liabilities get cut." He told me to pack a bag and be gone by midnight. Emily cried. I begged. He didn't blink. And you gotta understand, it was never about the coffee. A month earlier, he'd taken my whole paycheck, $240, and called it rent. Rent for a 17-year-old sleeping in his childhood bedroom. When I asked for a little of it back for school supplies, he laughed and said money doesn't grow back once a real man spends it. I should have heard the confession hiding inside that sentence. That night I walked out with one duffel bag while he flicked the 20 at my chest. "There's your inheritance," he said. "Don't spend it all in one place." Here's what I didn't know yet. After Mom died, Dad started playing cards, first with guys from work, then at a card room 2 towns over, then online at 3 in the morning with the door locked, and that old fight with Grandpa Samuel. Years back, Dad had asked him for a loan, and Grandpa said no. Not out of spite. Grandpa told him, "I'll pay for help, but I won't pay for cards." Dad never forgave him for seeing the problem that clearly. So at midnight, I had exactly one place left to go. I stood in front of that repair shop, and Grandpa Samuel opened the door in his bathrobe like he'd been expecting me for years. He didn't ask what I did. He asked if I'd eaten. Above the shop there was a tiny apartment. 1 room, a hot plate, a bed with a wool blanket. He said, "It's yours. The rent is 1 notebook." The next morning he handed me a green ledger and gave me the sentence that rebuilt my life. "Write down every dollar that touches your hands. Money doesn't lie. People lie about money." Every Sunday night after that we sat at his workbench and went through my week, line by line. He'd tap the page and say, "Debt tells you who a man really is. Watch what he does when the bill comes due." I didn't know it yet, but he was describing my father. A week later, Emily called me, whispering from her closet. She'd found letters in Dad's truck. Collection letters. Final notices. Then she read me the number, and my stomach went through the floor. $40,000. My father was $40,000 deep in gambling debt, and he threw me out over 20. So I did the only thing I could do. I worked. Counter shifts at the shop, deliveries on Saturdays, community college classes at night, every single dollar written into that green ledger. In 8 months, I saved $1,100, and I wanted Emily to have it for a laptop and her band fees. She was still a minor, so I swallowed my pride, knocked on my father's door, and handed him the envelope. He shook my hand like a businessman. 2 weeks later, Emily still had no laptop, and a neighbor told me he'd seen my father at the card room, buying rounds for the whole table. $1,100 gone in 2 weekends. That one taught me a rule I've never forgotten. Money you hand an addict isn't help, it's fuel. A year later, it got worse. Emily called again, scared this time. A man had come to the house about Dad's debts, and the $40,000 had grown to $52,000, because that's what debt does when you feed it minimum payments and fresh bets. Say that number out loud with me. $52,000. So I tried again. I went to the house with everything I'd saved, $3,000, and I offered it. Not as cash in his hand. As the first payment on a real plan, with a debt counselor, with a schedule, with the cards cut off. Dad slapped the envelope off my palm right there on the front porch, with the neighbors watching from their yards. "I don't take charity from a liability," he said. "I've got it handled." I picked my own money up off the steps, bill by bill, and I drove back to the shop in silence. That was twice now. Twice I'd tried to do the right thing, and twice I got punished for it. Then came the phone call I still hear in my sleep. Emily was 18 by then, 1 year from college, and she was sobbing so hard I could barely make out the words. The college account was empty. $18,000, saved since the week she was born, the same statements she used to tape to her mirror. Dad was the custodian on the account, and he'd drained every cent for one last run to win it all back. He lost it in 9 days. 3 months later, the bank took the house. I drove over and found my little sister sitting on the curb with her whole life packed into boxes. She went to live with our aunt across the state, and I hugged her goodbye in a parking lot. She held onto my jacket and asked me why he did it. I didn't have an answer. I just promised her that somehow, someday, I'd get it all back for her. I had no idea how I was going to keep that promise. Run the numbers with me, because I ran them every single night. $20 got me exiled. $1,100 stolen. $52,000 owed to dangerous people. $18,000 taken from a teenager. And now the house was gone too. I was 20 years old, and I couldn't fix any of it. That winter, Grandpa Samuel died in his sleep. 81 years old, his wrench still on the bench, his coffee cup washed and drying by the sink. The funeral was small and full of people whose machines he'd fixed for fair prices for 50 years. Afterward, his lawyer asked me to come by the office. I remember the radiator ticking. I remember the folder sliding across the desk. Grandpa left me the shop. He left me 2 brick rental buildings on 5th Street that I never even knew he owned. And he left an investment account he'd been quietly feeding for 40 years. The lawyer turned the statement around and the whole room went silent. I put my finger under that number and counted the zeros one at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. $1,200,000. More than $1 million, sitting under a man who ate lunch from a paper bag every day of his life. My hands were shaking. The lawyer told me the account had never missed a monthly deposit in 40 years. $50 here, $100 there, through every recession, quiet as a heartbeat. Inside the folder was a note in his handwriting. "You wrote down every dollar. Now go make them mean something." The first call I made wasn't to a car dealer. It was to Emily's college. I paid her tuition in full, all 4 years, $38,000, sent straight to the school so nobody could ever touch it on the way there. She screamed so loud her roommate thought something was wrong. Then I sat down with Grandpa's 2 repairmen, Marcus and Denny, who'd spent 3 weeks quietly terrified they were losing their jobs. I told them the shop stays open, I gave them both raises, and I put their names on the wall right next to Grandpa's. Then I did the boring stuff nobody makes videos about. New roofs on both rental buildings, fair rents, so the good tenants stayed for years. I finished my accounting classes at night, and I kept writing every dollar in the green ledger exactly like I did when I was broke. Here's the quiet part I want you to notice. Within a year, the shop had its best quarter in a decade, and the buildings ran clean, and the account kept growing without me ever touching the principal. That's the part nobody teaches you. The money you don't touch works harder than you ever will. Meanwhile, across town, my father got evicted from his apartment. Word travels fast in a small town, especially word about money. He showed up at the shop on a Tuesday morning in a blazer that didn't fit him anymore, smiling like a salesman. First came the flattery. "There's my boy. My son, the businessman. I always said you had a head for money, didn't I?" He hadn't said my name out loud in 3 years. He walked the shop floor touching machines he couldn't fix, doing loud math about what the buildings on 5th Street must be worth. He asked for a tour like he owned the place. He called Marcus the help. He even sat down in Grandpa's chair, and I felt Marcus watching me from the bench, waiting to see what I'd do. I let him talk. Then the smile cracked and the truth crawled out from under it. The debt was $60,000 now. $60,000, and the people he owed had stopped sending letters and started sending visitors. He needed it by Friday. "Family helps family," he said. I asked him where that rule was the night he flicked a 20 at my chest. And then my father, the man who never blinked, grabbed the edge of my counter with both hands and begged. Real tears. "Please, Eric. I'm begging you, son. You're all I've got left. I'll pay back every cent. I'll sign anything you want. Just this once, and then I'm done, I swear it on your mother." The shop went very quiet. Marcus set his wrench down. And I heard myself say the words I'd been carrying for 3 years. "You're a liability, Dad. And liabilities get cut. He flinched like the sentence hit bone. He should know. He built it. But Grandpa didn't raise me to be cruel. He raised me to be in control, and those aren't the same thing. So I laid out the only deal that would ever be on my table, not $1 of cash. Not Friday, not ever. Instead, a real treatment program for gambling addiction 90 days, actual counselors, and I'd pay the provider directly. Alongside it, a debt counselor to negotiate with the people he owed, also paid directly. Money that can only turn into help and can never turn into chips. He called it an insult. He called me ungrateful. He knocked a display off my counter on the way out, and the door slammed so hard the front windows rattled. Then 3 weeks and one very bad Friday later he called back, and he took the program. I'm told he finished it. We talk on the phone now, 10 minutes, once a month. The boundary hasn't moved, and it isn't going to. And the last thing I did that year was the first thing I'd wanted to do all along. I renovated the little apartment above the shop, the one room that saved my life, and I handed the key to Emily so she'd have a home while she studies in town. On her first night, she taped something new to the mirror. Not bank statements this time. A photo of Grandpa Samuel standing in front of his shop, laughing. So here's what I need you to take from all this. Debt hides behind the loudest blame. The man screaming about $20 is sometimes drowning in $40,000, and the anger is the cover story. Watch what people do with money when they think nobody's looking, because money doesn't lie. People lie about money. Real wealth is having enough control to say no without becoming cruel, not having enough money to say yes to everyone. Now I want to hear from you. Would you've helped my dad after everything he did, or walked away for good? Tell me in the comments below. And if somebody ever left a door unlocked for you when you were sitting on the curb, go be that door for someone else. I'm Eric. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.